Hello, and welcome to part two of A Tale for Halloween by Loretta Ellen Brady. Follow me, sang Pumpkin as he led the way to a tiny door that opened beneath the forest. Turnips and carrots squeezed through, and Anton, fearing to be left behind, caught up Babette and ran faster. Just as he reached the little door, a rough potato tried to slam it in his face, but Anton was too quick for him. He ran through and climbed down the hole into the underground forest. There he continued the chase, but the ground here was springy and elastic, and with each step Anton began to gain on the vegetables. Babette's fatigue left her, and she shook herself free of Anton's hand. "We'll catch up to them," declared Anton as they ran along. Even as he spoke, Potato stubbed his toe, and Babette caught him. She held him firmly, although he squirmed and tried his best to get free. "Help! Help!" bawled Potato when he saw he was a prisoner. "Oh, Pumpkin, wait for me!" he cried. The tears streamed from every one of his eyes, and he looked truly sad. At his cries, Pumpkin turned around, and all the vegetables followed their leader. "Come now, Anton," began Pumpkin in a persuasive voice. "You might let us have one night off, you know. Halloween is our night." Somewhere on his run, Pumpkin had picked up two twigs, and on these he now balanced himself rather unsteadily and thrust his sleeves in a place where his pockets would have been if he had had pockets. He looked so very jolly and his grin was so very broad that Anton was inclined to give up the prisoner. But just then he thought of the ruined vegetable garden and grew angry again. "It is all very well for you to be polite, Pumpkin, and try to beg off your friend," said Anton. "But this is the very fellow that tried to slam the door in my face not 2 seconds ago." "Oh, Anton," cried Potato, "that's wrong. It was 3 seconds ago, as true as I live. I looked at my watch just as I was trying to pinch your nose in the underground door, and it's quite 3 seconds ago. Maybe it's 4." "Oh, hush up!" cried Pumpkin. "That's no way to talk when you're trying to beg off. Let him off for my sake, Anton," he continued in a most winning voice. "You'd get everlastingly tired of being in bed yourself. You know you would. See if you wouldn't take the first chance to kick up your heels if you could get it." "But, Pumpkin," replied Anton, "think of my vegetable garden. It's ruined. I was saving all my vegetable money to go to school, and now I cannot go for ever and ever so long. Besides, how could I know you got tired of being in a bed? You never spoke to me before." "Well, I speak to you now," replied Pumpkin. "And as for your vegetable patch, we'll all make that up to you, won't we, boys?" We will," called the vegetables in chorus, and the potato in Babette's little fist yelled the loudest of all. "There now, you see, we mean no harm," declared Pumpkin. "So let Potato go. Then you can both join us in our Halloween frolic." At the magic words, Halloween frolic, Babette put Potato down at once. She was bound to have her fun, and, after all, the vegetables seemed to be a jolly lot. So peace was made, and the children followed the bobbing turnips and onions. Then shouts were heard, and Pumpkin ordered a halt. Presently they were joined by a dozen or more cabbages. "You're nice ones," panted the cabbages. "There we sat in the storeroom, waiting for you to call us, and the first thing we knew, we saw you pelting off down the hill like mad things." "My gracious!" said a very stout cabbage, who was terribly out of breath. "I'll have to take off my outer leaves before I go another step. I feel as though I were boiled." Anton recognized the cabbages at once. "You are Father Minette's cabbages, are you not?" he inquired politely, as they marched along. "Why, if it isn't little Anton, the woodcutter's son!" exclaimed the very stout cabbage. "Yes, we come from Minette's farm. Mother Minette saved us for a pickle, but we fooled her and slipped out of the storeroom when she was not looking. Oh, we cabbages are not so green as we look." The cabbages all laughed, and Anton was surprised to find that he laughed too. As they went marching on, Pumpkin sang and danced in the lead, and onions and carrots echoed his hearty songs. Presently, great black cats with shining yellow eyes stepped from behind the trees, and each cat was soon joined by its mistress, who was no other than a real witch in a tall, peaked hat and carrying a broomstick. The cabbages, who were a friendly lot, introduced Anton and Babette to these witches, and the witches seemed pleased to meet the children. "They do not seem to be wicked witches, do they, Anton?" whispered Babette. "Oh, my dear," replied a witch who overheard, "we are not a bit wicked on Halloween, you know. Any other night I'd probably do you a mischief, It's my nature, you know. She reached in her bag and handed Babette a peppermint. Babette, who was very fond of peppermint, ate it up with all haste. You shouldn't do that, my dear, reproved the witch. It is seldom witches give peppermints, and when they do, the peppermints should be treasured. Here is another to keep for your pocket, and then you will never be without a peppermint when you want one. And she handed Babette another. Babette curtsied so prettily that the witch was charmed and took her to ride on her broomstick. It was the gayest company one ever could imagine as they marched along. Every vegetable was singing a different Halloween song in a different key, and they all had voices that sang out of tune by nature. Babette, her little white nightdress flying in the breeze, was riding on the witch's broomstick and singing loudly as the rest. When they reached the dance floor, it was lighted with millions and millions of glowworms, and an orchestra of 10,000 frogs hummed lively tunes in their throats. Pumpkin seized a handful of glowworms and put them on his head. Then, with his features all aglow, he cried out, Ready for the dance! Instead of taking partners, the vegetables just plunged onto the floor and began to jump about like mad. If they fell down, they did not jump up at once, but rolled around the floor most good naturedly. They looked so like vegetables boiling about in a great soup kettle that Anton thought he should die of laughing. The witches took their brooms and began a sort of ladies' change figure while they chased their cats around the edge of the circle. Babette danced hardest of all. She knew no more of dancing than any carrot or parsnip, but she capered wildly, singing at the top of her voice. Come and dance too, Anton, called Babette, as she went jumping past her brother, but he shook his head and laughed. I am too big for such nonsense, said he. I'm 10, you know. What nonsense, cried a witch who was chasing her cat close by. 10 is exactly the right age to have fun. She raised her broom playfully, and before he knew it, she swept Anton into the middle of the dance. Pumpkin, his grinning features all aglow, went flying past and made Anton feel proud. Pumpkin was certainly the handsomest vegetable of the lot. As the night grew later, the frogs hummed faster, but hum as fast as they would, they could not keep up with the frisky vegetables. Beets and cauliflowers continued to bob up and down like mad. Cabbages from Minette's farm lost leaf after leaf. Carrots and onions grew battered from much tumbling about, and the merry din of song and laughter grew louder and louder. Let's play blind man's bluff, called Anton. I'll be it and show you how to play. He tied a handkerchief over his eyes, and the witches and their black cats went darting hither and thither. The vegetables were so pleased with this new game that they would play nothing else. They might have been playing it yet had not a cock crowed suddenly. Good gracious me, cried a witch. The glowworms are all gone out. It's nearly morning. All who are going back to the vegetable patch had best be on their way. Not I, cried Pumpkin. I've done with vegetable patches forevermore. Not we, exclaimed the cabbages. We're going to turn savage and be wild cabbages for the rest of our days. We shan't go back to Mother Minette's pickle jars. Straightway every vegetable began to raise its voice and declare it would not go back to Anton's patch. Oh, hush, all of you, cried the witch. Stay in the woods for the rest of your life if you like. It's nothing to me. But what of Antone and Babette? Who is to take them home? Well, ma'am, replied Pumpkin with a low bow, we thought that you might be good enough to give them a ride home on your broomstick. But, Pumpkin, cried Antone in dismay, you promised to make it up to me if I let Potato go, and I think should all return with me. I shall not have any vegetables if you all remain in the woods. Never worry about that, Antone, replied Pumpkin with a lordly air. Here is a purse for each of you, and if you take good care never to lose them, you will have plenty of gold forever. Isn't that true, boys? True as we're not going back to the farm, cried the cabbages. You'd best hurry and plant yourself before it grows daylight, Pumpkin. They warned and began to dig holes in the earth. Before Antone and Babette had mounted a witch's broomstick, all the carrots and turnips and even Pumpkin were all tucked up in their sandy beds. They called a faint goodbye as the children sailed off with the witch. Oh, what a beautiful Halloween frolic, sighed Babette as she leaned her head on Anton's shoulder and fell fast asleep.